One moment, I was looking through clear river water, and the next moment, I was in a light. Not a light like sunlight, not a light like a lamp. It was a clear white light, and calling it white still feels wrong, because it wasn't the kind of white I'd ever seen on Earth. Welcome to Let's Lift the Veil. Before we begin, take 1 second to support this video. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It really helps these stories reach the people who need them. Today's episode is a powerful near-death experience that happened in the early 1960s when a young girl was caught in a sudden near drowning in a crystal-clear river at her family's cabin in northern Michigan. What follows is an extraordinary account, an out-of-body perception, a clear white light that feels like home, and a profound message about why humanity is here, to learn how to love and to gain knowledge. Stay until the end, because the final section, My Life Behind the Veil, explores what changed after the experience, recovery, the return to everyday life, evolving spirituality, and the lasting impact on relationships, beliefs, and intuition. This story is inspired by a real testimony that you can read by clicking the link in the description or the one pinned in the first comment. We invite you now to listen with an open mind and an open heart. Now close your eyes, breathe in, and let's lift the veil together. It was one of those perfect summer days that only exist when you're a kid and the world feels safe. We were at our family's little wood cabin up north in Michigan, the place we went to every summer for a week. I can still picture it like a photograph. Sun everywhere, the smell of trees and warm wood, and a river in front of the cabin that looked so clear it almost didn't seem real. The water wasn't dark or scary. It was crystal clear, the kind of clear where you can see the stones and the sand and the way the light dances on the bottom. I was still young, around 10 or 11, and I couldn't swim yet. Not even a little. But I wasn't afraid of the river, because we'd been there before and nothing bad had ever happened. I was just waiting, step by step, enjoying the coldness on my skin and the sounds around me. The water came up to my chest, and I remember looking up at the sky for a second, listening to nature like it was talking. Birds, wind through leaves, that gentle moving sound water makes when it slides past you. Then I took one more step. There was no bottom. It wasn't a slow thing. It wasn't dramatic in the way movies make it. It was sudden and simple. My foot went down, expecting ground, and met nothing. In that instant, my body dropped, and I went under the water. I remember being strangely upright, like I hadn't even had time to fall forward. My eyes were open, and the first thought that flashed through me wasn't even fear yet. It was surprise, and how incredibly clear everything looked underwater. I could see far ahead of me, as if the river had turned into glass. But right after that, the reality hit. I can't swim. I can't get up. This is it. I could feel the current moving me to the right. Later, when I tried to explain it, I describe it like being carried along at 3 or 4 miles an hour, fast enough that you know you're not in control. The water didn't feel like it was gently holding me. It felt like it had decided where I was going. And then the fear arrived. It wasn't a complicated fear. It was intense. My mind wasn't thinking about tomorrow or school or anything else. It was only one thought, repeating like a bell. I'm going to die. I remember that thought with a clarity that's almost uncomfortable because it was the last human thought I remember having in my body. And then, without any transition I can describe, everything changed. One moment, I was looking through clear river water, and the next moment, I was in a light. Not a light like sunlight, not a light like a lamp. It was a clear white light, and calling it white still feels wrong, because it wasn't the kind of white I'd ever seen on Earth. It was bright, brighter than anything should be, yet it didn't hurt. It didn't sting my eyes, and somehow it didn't feel harsh. It felt alive. The strangest part is how immediate the change was inside me. The fear didn't fade. It didn't lessen. It didn't slowly go away. It was simply removed, like someone reached into my chest and lifted it out. In its place came a feeling so complete I didn't even understand it at first. Safety, relief, a kind of peace that felt older than time. And I knew, without anyone needing to prove it, that I wasn't drowning anymore. I realized I wasn't in my body. I didn't float up or rise out the way people describe sometimes. I just knew I had left it. 1 second I was the child under the river, and the next second I existed outside of that. I've always struggled to explain how I could be so sure, but it was as obvious as knowing your own name. I was still me, but I wasn't made of anything heavy. The light was everywhere, around me, in front of me, to the sides. I didn't even need to turn my head because I understood it was behind me too. It enveloped me completely, but it didn't feel like being trapped. It felt like being held. And then something even more surprising happened. I realized I belonged there. That's the only way to say it. The feeling was not, oh, this is pretty, or this is interesting. It was deeper than that, like returning home after being away so long you forgot you had a home. I felt a joy that didn't have a cause. It wasn't the joy of getting a present or winning a game. It was joy the way breathing is breathing, natural, constant, and full. I felt love too, but not like love on Earth. On Earth, love always seems to have edges, conditions, expectations, fear of losing it, worry about whether you deserve it. This love had no edges. It didn't measure me. It didn't judge me. It didn't ask me to explain myself. It simply accepted me completely, as if everything about me, every thought, every flaw, every innocent childish mistake, was already understood and already forgiven. And it wasn't just that the light loved me. I loved the light. It felt familiar, intimately familiar, like we had known each other long before I was a child, standing in a Michigan river. I trusted it completely. That trust didn't come from reasoning. It came from recognition. Then I became aware of a presence within the light. At first, it was only a sense, like when you know someone is standing behind you even without seeing them. But it grew stronger until it was undeniable. There was an intelligence there, a personality, something separate from me, and yet not separate the way humans are separate. I didn't see a face. I didn't see a body. I didn't see wings or robes or anything that belonged to church pictures. But I felt something like a being, and I also felt that the light itself was that being. It was as if the light could speak, could think, could know. And then, without sound, without lips moving, without air, communication happened. It wasn't words in my ears. It was mind to mind, but it was even more than that. Because with the message came the full meaning of the message all at once. Not like learning a sentence, but like receiving an entire understanding. I was told, very clearly, you are here to learn how to love and to gain knowledge. It sounds simple when I say it like that, but in that place, it wasn't a simple sentence. When I was given those words, love and knowledge, it was as if their definitions opened inside me like a book made of light. I understood love in a way I never had before. Not just romantic love, not just family love, not just being nice. It was the love of nature, the love that recognizes every human being as equal, the love that sees beyond color, beyond culture, beyond status, beyond power. Love as acceptance, love as unity, love as recognizing that every person is a spark of the same source. And knowledge. Knowledge wasn't just school or facts. It was the desire to learn, to expand, to understand other cultures and histories, to grow in awareness. Knowledge as curiosity, knowledge as evolution of the soul, knowledge as something sacred, not something that makes you better than someone else. And I understood something else too. When the light said you, it didn't only mean me. It meant us, the whole human race. It was like being shown in one instant that all of us are here for the same reason, to learn love and to gain knowledge, and that humanity might advance in science and technology and still be in kindergarten spiritually if we keep fighting over differences like children fighting over toys. That thought came with a sadness, not harsh, not angry, but disappointed, like a parent watching their child refuse to share. In that light, time didn't exist the way it does here. I can't tell you how long I was there. Seconds? Minutes? I only know that everything felt like now. I wasn't thinking the way I think on Earth, with a dozen thoughts at once. There were no worries, no planning, no remembering what I had to do later. I was completely focused, completely present, and every feeling was vivid. Joy vivid, peace vivid, belonging vivid. At some point, I became aware of something like a boundary. Not a wall made of stone, not a gate, not anything physical. Just a sense that there was a line I couldn't cross. I didn't fight it. I didn't feel punished. I simply understood. I wasn't allowed to go further. And with that understanding came another one. I had to go back. There wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't frightening. It was more like being reminded of an agreement I had already made. Like I had signed up for this life, and I was going to live it. I didn't feel abandoned by the light. I felt held even in the returning, like the light was giving me a hug and sending me back to finish my work. I didn't want to leave, though, because I felt like I was home there. I felt like I belonged there, more than I had ever belonged anywhere on Earth. But at the same time, once I was reminded of what I was here for, a part of me accepted it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to live this life too, because now it had meaning. And then the story becomes blank, in a way that has never changed. I do not remember leaving the light. I do not remember traveling back. I do not remember re-entering my body, and I do not remember exactly how I got out of the water. It's like my mind drew a curtain over that moment. Even now, years later, I can remember the river, the sudden drop, the clear underwater view, the current pulling me, and then the light. I can remember the feeling of love and acceptance more accurately than I can remember most childhood events. But the mechanics of returning, how my body survived, how my feet found the bottom, those details are missing. The only thing I can do is guess. Maybe the current carried me into a shallow place, and I was able to stand up. Maybe I found footing and stumbled out. Maybe my body did something instinctive. I don't know. What I do know is that the experience in the light never changed in my memory. The message never faded. The feeling never became uncertain. And for a long time, I kept it to myself. As a child, I didn't have words for it. I didn't even know it had a name. Nobody around me talked about experiences like that. I had been raised Catholic, taught about heaven and hell and judgment and sin. But what I felt in that light didn't match fear-based religion. There was no courtroom, no condemnation, no list of my wrongs. There was only love, pure, unconditional love, and a clear purpose that felt bigger than any sermon. So I stayed quiet. Because when you're young and something happens that feels too big, you learn quickly that people might not understand. And you don't want to be seen as strange. You don't want the look people give when they don't know what to do with your truth. Years later, much later, I stumbled across a book about near-death experiences, Raymond Moody's Life After Life book. I remember being drawn to it immediately, almost like something in me recognized it before my mind did. And when I read it, I thought, so that's what happened to me. I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. There was a name for it, and other people had touched something similar. That was when I finally began to share it, carefully, with only a few people close to me. Because even then, it felt like telling someone you'd seen a UFO. Everybody's heard stories, but not everyone wants to believe you. And that brings me to the part of my story I always separate clearly because it isn't the experience itself, it's what happened after. My life, behind the veil. Coming back to ordinary life didn't feel dramatic on the outside. To everyone else, it was just a frightening near drowning that I somehow survived. But inside me, something had shifted so quietly and so completely that it took years to understand what it had changed. In the days and weeks afterward, I was different. Not in a way people could easily label, but in the way I looked at everything. The river wasn't just a river anymore. Nature wasn't just scenery. Life wasn't just a sequence of school days and summers and chores. Somewhere deep inside, I carried the certainty that consciousness survives the body. I couldn't have explained it like that at 10 or 11, but I lived as if I knew it. There was also the practical side, the fear of water. I wish I could say I bravely jumped back in and conquered it, but that isn't how trauma works, especially when you're a kid. Learning to swim later was hard. Putting my face in the water was a struggle. Floating felt like surrender, and surrender felt dangerous. It took time, patience, and repetition before my body believed what my soul already knew, that water didn't automatically mean death. Even though I don't remember the exact moment I got out, I remember the confusion afterward, how the world looked normal while I felt like I had been somewhere else entirely. Adults ask simple questions. Are you okay? What happened? And I didn't know how to answer. I didn't talk about the light. I didn't talk about being outside my body. I didn't talk about the presence. Partly because I lacked words, and partly because some part of me understood that people might turn it into something frightening, or dismiss it, or make it about rules and punishment. I didn't want that. I wanted to protect what felt sacred. As I grew older, my relationship with religion became complicated. I had been raised Catholic, taught ideas about judgment, about fear of hell, about deserving punishment. But I had felt something completely different. In the light, I felt no judgment, only love, belonging, acceptance. So as a teenager and later as a young adult, I couldn't stop comparing what I was taught to what I knew. It wasn't rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It was integrity. I couldn't pretend fear was the truth when I had tasted something else. That search pushed me into learning. I studied religions, not because I wanted to pick a label, but because I wanted to understand how different people explain the same mystery. I read widely. I questioned everything. At times, I moved through different Christian communities. At times, I stepped back completely. I still felt close to God, close to the Creator, because I had felt that presence so directly. But I also began to believe that a lot of religion is human-made, rules built to control society, stories built to create us and them. And once you've felt a love that doesn't separate people, prejudice becomes unbearable. One of the biggest changes in me was the way I saw other human beings. The message about love wasn't sentimental. It was structural. It rearranged how I understood equality. As I grew up, I realized I had little tolerance for racism, for superiority games, for judging people by money, education, job titles, or background. I saw how easily people rank each other, and it felt childish, like that kindergarten image that always comes back to me. Grown adults fighting over toys. That same message shaped my adult life, more than I realized at first. Looking back, it's almost eerie how closely my path matched what I was shown. My life became centered around knowledge and connection. I built a life where learning never stopped, where curiosity became a kind of devotion. And in the work I chose, I ended up meeting people from all over the world, learning cultures, hearing stories, discovering how similar we all are once you get past the surface. The experience also softened the fear of death in me, not the fear of pain or the fear of leaving people behind, but the fear of what comes after. That fear vanished. I didn't feel like death was a punishment or a final end. I felt like it was a transition, like stepping out of a heavy coat. The body dies, yes, that part can be frightening, but I became convinced that we don't vanish. We continue. Over time, another change appeared. Intuition. I wouldn't call it a superpower, and I'm careful with language like that, but I noticed I could sense people. I could feel what they were thinking or feeling before they said it. People began to talk to me about their problems without me inviting it. Strangers opened up. Friends came for advice. It was as if the light had tuned me to a deeper frequency of human emotion, and I could hear it beneath the words. Sometimes it was a gift. Sometimes it was exhausting, but it made me more compassionate, more patient, more able to see the hidden pain behind someone's behavior. And when I finally started telling people about my experience, especially after I learned what NDEs were, I learned something about humans too. Some people react with wonder. Some people react with fear. Some people try to fit it into the box they already have, insisting it must mean this religion is right, or that doctrine is proven, or that you must have seen what they believe you should have seen. Others dismiss it completely because it threatens their idea of reality. So I became selective. I learned that not everyone deserves your most sacred story. Not because they're bad people, but because they may not know how to hold it. Still, I kept sharing in small, careful ways because I also saw what it did for the right person. It gave them hope. It softened their grief. It made them less afraid. It reminded them that love might be more fundamental than fear. If I had to name the biggest lesson the light left in me, it would be this: no one is better than anyone else. Not because it's a nice moral idea, but because it's literally true at the level of the soul. We are sparks of the same source. We are part of the same light, and if we could see each other the way the light sees us, we would treat each other very differently. I'm still learning. I'm still on Earth. I'm still in the classroom. Some days I do better at love than other days. But I live with a quiet certainty that changed everything. I have been home before, and I will be home again. And while I'm here, the purpose is simple and demanding at the same time. Learn, grow, expand, and practice love until it becomes as natural as breathing. Thank you for listening to this story all the way through. If this testimony resonated with you, if it brought comfort, perspective, or even questions, take a moment to share it with someone who might need it. And now, we'd love to hear from you. What part of this experience touched you the most? Do you believe our purpose is truly centered on love and learning? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Your words can help others feel less alone. If you want more near-death experience narratives like this one, subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. You can also support the channel by joining the community or simply by watching another video right now. One is on screen. Let's keep lifting the veil, one episode at a time. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you soon for another journey beyond the veil.